So, Josh, if you could go back and tell a beginner one thing, what would that one thing be?
I guess to sum it up in one sentence, it would be make data-driven decisions. Don't buy emotionally. My own experiences here will be good to illustrate this point. So when I first got started selling on Amazon back in 2013, I just bought a whole load of stuff. I had about £500. I live in the UK, so 500 Great British pounds after having sold my car. And I'd heard about this selling on Amazon through a friend, and after having sold on eBay for a while, and I had £500 that I took to a store. This is an in-person store, so I used to do most of what I do now in retail stores, physically going to the store. I went into their clearance section and found a load of stuff at a heavy discount, and some of it was like really heavily discount. I'm sure if you've been in a retail store yourselves before, you'll have seen the clearance section, the sales section, whatever, where they've got big heavy discounts off of their products, and some of it looks really good. But what I found out was that those discounts were probably too good to be true, because I spent that £500, invested it into buying a whole load of inventory that I planned to resell on Amazon for a profit. And having been an eBay seller before, that's kind of what I did. I would just buy stuff that I thought looked cheap and that I thought I could sell for more. Instincts did not lead me very well with those. And ultimately, the stuff that I bought, I listed on Amazon for sale. It never sold, right? It just sat there gathering dust. And it wasn't until I did a little bit more research into it, studied a little bit more, and found out about the data that Amazon actually provides us with. And then later on down the line, once tools started being released that would help us to understand and read this data a little bit better, did I start making more informed, like I said, data-driven decisions.
I think that's the thing that many of us miss when we're beginners, right? Is that we come in and we just kind of go, well, I don't know anything. Therefore, if I kind of follow the rules loosely, because think about it, the rules of arbitrage is like that you buy something that is discounted, you sell it on Amazon for its full price. Therefore, if I see a discounted item, well, then surely that's an opportunity. And if I go to Amazon and I say, oh yeah, it's $100 and I can buy it for 10, following all the rules, guys. So what have I done wrong here? And I think that just comes down to, like anything with what we're teaching, especially here with arbitrage, wholesale, private label, there is a strategy to it all, Josh. I mean, we've taken in some cases a decade of our lives and put it into what we teach in our programs. And obviously here on YouTube and other platforms, we're talking through those things that we've learned. And I think that's a really big one. But that being said, I think what your story also illustrates, there's a relative ease of entry to private to arbitrage, because you can go into a store, you can see something that is discounted and buy it and sell it for more. And we don't want to make the kind of point, Josh, that like that's not doable either, because that's absolutely achievable online and offline. 100%. You just need to know what you're doing, right?
Exactly, yeah. And just to use another example, right? So you said we've established guidelines for minimum kinds of return on investment, ROI, so how much we want to achieve over and above our original investment and then our profitability. But if we go into a store and we find discounted products, we now have tools that we can use, whether we do this like physically in store or online. We have tools that we can use to look these products up, see how many times per month it's selling, have a profit calculator work out the difference between the two. Where I'm seeing people go wrong is I'll get messages from clients and things like that, excited because they found a product that, like you said, they can buy for 10 and it's selling for $100 on Amazon. But when we actually pull back the curtain and have a closer look, we can see that nobody is actually paying $100 and that it's a bit of a trap that's unintentionally been laid there.
Yeah, and again, it can be difficult to figure out which way to go when you're starting. And so to help you with that, by the way, we do have something I want to tell you about down below. If you comment 100K in the comments here and down below, we will send you a completely free guide where we're going to teach you the 3 different Amazon business models. And also we're going to give you a quiz in there to help you identify which one of these 3 models is right for you. So comment 100K down below and we'll get that across to you as soon as we possibly can. So I think one thing that I wanted to touch on then, Josh, is the strategy here is having a data-driven strategy whereby you're looking at numbers in a particular way and you're making decisions on that. But there's other mistakes that we see people make when they started. And if you could go back, these would be mistakes that I'm sure you would want to avoid. So maybe talk about another one of the mistakes that you see even some of our own clients make that you really wish you could kind of jump in there and grab them earlier and say, like, don't do this. What would that be?
Yeah, so I guess the next biggest one, once we've kind of gotten over the hurdle of understanding the data and buying the right kinds of products, is overbuying. Overbuying would be investing in too large of a quantity of the same product. So one of the wonderful benefits with the arbitrage model is that we don't have to buy hundreds of any one particular product. We can take let's say you have $1,000 to invest in this business, right? It would not be smart to take all that $1,000 and put it into just one single product. Because if that product doesn't end up doing what you expect it to do, then you end up being stuck with all that money tied up in that one product. Whereas if you were to take that $1,000 and maybe buy 10 different products that were, I don't know, 30 odd dollars a piece, you could buy 3 of each. Well, then you've got 30 units, 10 different products that you can test all at once. And I've seen it so many times where people have either not heard that advice or not taken that advice and gone and overbought because they got excited by it. Believe me, I've done it myself. I still do it now. I was saying just on a call the other day, we went into a store and I bought a quantity of 70 of a product that's only selling 11 a month. But with that product, I decided that there was a better buy because the profitability was really good. We could buy at a very low price and sell it at a very high price, but those situations don't come up every day. So overbuying is a really big one.
Yeah, and again, for those of you that are watching, one of the things we teach actually with our arbitrage methodology is you buy 3 to 5 units of an item, like you were saying, and then you're not going to be overexposed. So let's say it costs you $5 a unit to buy it, right? We work in dollars, by the way, because we have a global audience. Even though Josh and I are not located in the US, it doesn't matter. But let's say it's $5 and we buy 5 units. So we're $25 in, right? It doesn't work out, let's just say, right? We can't get access to the buy box or we made a mistake or whatever. Look, it's a $25 mistake. It's not a $2,500 mistake or $250 mistake, right? And that's important to understand. When you talk about wholesale, by the way, because another strategy that we do teach, and again, if you want to learn the 3 different ways to do Amazon, type 100K down below and we'll send you our guide. You can figure out which way you want to go. But with wholesale, it's also there's a way you can actually really reduce your risk there as well. And you do that by ordering a box quantity. So you're talking about a box of 10, a box of 20. It's not going to be 3 or 5, it's going to be a box quantity, but still in all, you're not ordering hundreds of units of the exact same thing. And so what we're really saying here, when it comes to these two models, you're going to reduce down your risk. And even with private label, by the way, you will look to do a test order on your first product. Like you're not going to order, you're going to try to get below MOQ, 60% of MOQ or less if you possibly can. So every way we're going here on Amazon, I guess the lesson here is don't overbuy, spread your risk as much as you possibly can. And something I wanted to touch on, Josh, just for a sec, a mistake that I see people make that I wish if I had to go back in my own journey as well, I would tell this to myself. And it wasn't as big a thing when I began back in 2010, is around gating, especially for arbitrage and wholesale. So gating, by the way, in case you don't know what that means, is whereby you've got to get some permission from Amazon in order to sell certain branded items on the platform. And so you often need to send in an invoice from a distributor or an authorized source that you're buying these items from that Amazon recommend. Whenever you send in that source and Amazon see you're buying these branded items from a legitimate source, they will give you the permission to sell as long as you follow the criteria that they set out for you. Now, what I do see is people say, well, I'm not going to sell anything that is gated because it's going to cost me some money to open up those different opportunities. And for me, Josh, this is just a massive mistake because many of the, well, if not all of gated brands are going to be many of the best opportunities on Amazon. So what would your take be for those people who are going, I'm just going to sell stuff I don't need any permission for at all. That's all I'm going to do. You're not going to build a real business doing that. Would you agree?
Ultimately, it's not going to be possible long term because the people that are only looking to sell the ungated deals, as we call them, anything that you don't need to be ungated to sell. Well, if you think about it, those are the products, those are the opportunities that are open to the biggest pool of sellers. So you have the largest amount of people who are all looking to sell products that everybody can sell. And where there is the greatest level of competition, there's going to be the fastest, what we call race to the bottom, where everyone's just beating each other on price, reducing their price until there's no profit left in it. So all of the best profits to be had are inside of those gated brands, gated categories. And why would you not want to get access to sell some of the biggest brands on the planet that most of your competitors, because the reality of it is the vast majority of your competitors, they simply don't have access to sell it. And number one, because either, like you were saying, Stephen, they're not prepared to invest in their business in such a way to get access to it, or they just don't know how. They've been misled.
That's another big thing we see all the time. People have been told because of gating, this business is impossible. People have been told, well, if Amazon are selling it, like you just never, ever can sell it. And we just haven't seen those things to be true. If Amazon are selling something, is it more difficult at times? Yeah, it can be, but is it impossible? Definitely not. And there's tools that we can utilize to verify that other people are making sales, right? So it's not like we can't see this kind of thing. We can. And I think in general, like it's very common that people have very broad advice that they may be true for one thing, but not for another. Like, for instance, there are certain brands, Josh, on Amazon that from time to time, and sometimes all the time, become what we call hard gated, whereby
Yeah.
you just cannot get permission to sell them ever. And Nike is currently one that's kind of seems hard gated, but then some people are like, oh, I got permission to sell Nike. So it's hard to know, but that's probably one example of a brand that's relatively hard gated at times. But often those restrictions get lifted. And also during the times of year, like Q4, for example, some of the restrictions can get heavier. It makes sense because there's a lot more volume on the platform. Amazon are just trying to police it and make sure that people don't buy things that are not authentic merchandise and stuff. So that all makes sense, right? But I guess what could happen is someone could see during a particular time of the year, oh, I just couldn't get permission to sell it. You just can't, therefore impossible. But the reality is that these things ebb and flow all the time, don't they?
Amazon is forever moving goalposts when it comes to what we can sell and what we can't. But you know, that is something that is exciting for a seller, right? And again, leaning into the arbitrage and the wholesale strategy, because we have access to such a vast variety, we're not limited to a single product or a single category. We can sell more or less whatever we want. So if during a certain season, let's say, for example, one of the things that we've seen before, like you mentioned Q4, Stephen, is when you have a big movie release. The Mario movie got released, or the Barbie movie, and all of a sudden there's a surge in interest for merchandise related to that movie. Well, what can happen as you get towards the fourth quarter is that unfortunately a lot of people will start producing fakes of that, and so Amazon will then hard gate it for that period of time. But like you said, come January, February, that starts easing up, and that season for those products will come back in. So we can kind of dip in and dip out. And another reason for not overbuying, right? Because we've spread our bets around. We've got our investments spread about in lots of different products and lots of different categories that we may or may not be able to sell at different times of year.
Yeah, and again, one thing, if you go to the Amazon website and you go to sell on Amazon, you will see Amazon have resellers who sell existing well-known products in our stores. That's something Amazon, they accept. It's not like they say, well, no, we don't want that. They're happy to have resellers on the platform. So it's not like we're doing anything wrong or anything like that. As a matter of fact, we're selling the real deal because we're buying them from correct sources. We're never buying fakes or anything. It's just that Amazon want to ensure the customer experience is top class all the time. And that's one of the reasons why it's brilliant to be a seller on there, because buyers have such trust in Amazon and the platform that they've created. So if I could go back and tell myself, what would I tell myself? It would be, hey, Stephen, go in on this. Go more all in on this, right? Go and sell existing brands, but do it in different categories. Do it in different niches. Don't just be in the one spot. Don't just be in beauty. Don't just be in toys and games. Sell everything, right? Have your eyes open. And so that's another thing that we do teach inside our Kickstarter program, for instance. It's like, well, if you can sell anything, how do I find these opportunities? Because it can seem overwhelming. So we'll do a video about that as well, where we'll talk about it in more detail. But if you are trying to figure out what way you're looking to go, comment 100K down below in the comments. We'll send you a free guide. It's going to show you how to pick the right Amazon model for you based upon your time, your budget, and all of that. With that being said, though, Josh, thanks for coming on with me today. I think we covered some really good, solid ideas, especially for you starting out. And we'll see you in the next one.